everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I do want to take a moment and thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining me this Halloween season. I've been having so much spooky fun creating this content for you, and I hope you're having as much spooky fun watching it. Today, we are headed to the Lone Star State, Texas, to talk about the case, which is one that's haunted me since it happened in 2016. I remember thinking when it happened, this case will be solved within no time. It's a small town, there's surveillance footage, it should only be a matter of time until we see an arrest happen. But now, 4 years later, it's still unsolved and still haunting me. On April 18th, 2016, 45-year-old fitness instructor and mother of three, Missy Bevers, left her home in Red Oak, Texas at around 3:45 in the morning. Missy led a regular weekly early Monday morning class at the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas, which was roughly a half an hour drive away from her house, and it began at 5 a.m. And Missy liked to get there before her students so she could set up and be ready when they arrived. This specific Monday morning was gray and rainy, but she had posted on her Facebook account the night before, letting the attendees know that even if it was raining, they would still be training and just moving their workout indoors. At 4:14 a.m., Missy's truck pulled into the church parking lot, and a few minutes later, she entered the church. At 5 a.m., the first 911 call came in from one of Missy's students. Apparently, when the students had arrived at their usual time and ventured to their normal indoor workout space, Missy was dead, laying in a pool of blood with broken glass surrounding her. She had been attacked, but why and by whom? Before we dive deeper into this video, I would like to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Glasses USA. In every one of my videos, without fail, there's always several comments about my glasses. I have a lot of glasses, and for years, Glasses USA is the only place that I've ordered glasses from. I used to go to a place called Lens Crafters, and I'd walk in, stare at the dozens of frames on the wall, try a bunch on, while I make sure that my kids aren't setting fire to anything. Finally, I'd settle on frames that I didn't even really like that much. I just wanted to get it over with. Then I'd have to sit with a salesperson and answer a ton of questions about different coatings and insurance. And then I'd have to wait weeks before my glasses were ready. And I'd still have to leave the house and go back out to pick them up. But you can't just pick them up. You have to wait forever for someone to have the time to sit with you and measure them and make sure they're fitting correctly. They try to talk you into buying insurance again, even though you already said no the first time. And I just end up spending way more time and money than I ever wanted to. And in the end, I would have glasses, but they were glasses that I wasn't, crazy about. I didn't necessarily love them. It was just kind of a function thing, like I needed to see, so I just needed a pair of glasses. As a mother and someone who works a lot, I find it so much more convenient to be able to order my glasses online, take my time to really look through the options, and pick the frames that will match my personality, make me feel beautiful, just excite me, and then have them delivered right to my front door. Using GlassesUSA.com's virtual mirror, you can try on any pair of frames and see what they look like on your face by uploading a picture of yourself. Shopping online with GlassesUSA.com also means a risk-free shopping experience with free shipping and returns. You can add any type of prescription to almost any pair of frames, including sunglasses, and Glasses USA's lenses are of the same high quality you'll find in any glasses store, and they're even made in their own state-of-the-art lab. They offer blue light blocking lenses specifically designed to protect your eyes from harmful blue light rays that are emitted from digital devices such as your smartphone and your laptop. And as someone who spends a lot of time on the computer researching, writing, and editing, I do make sure that I always have a blue light block coating on my glasses so that my eyes aren't straining. Best of all, GlassesUSA.com has hundreds of frames to choose from, even brand names such as Coach and Ray-Ban. And because they cut out the middleman, they're able to offer them to you for 70% off retail prices. A complete pair of glasses starts at only $30, and free basic prescription lenses are included with every frame. Now you can shop for prescription eyewear online at affordable prices without leaving the comfort of your own home. And so many of you on Instagram and on YouTube have asked where I'm getting these glasses from that you're seeing in my pictures and videos. So I wanted to quickly tell you, and I'm also going to link them in the description box so you can go right there and check them out yourself. So this past month, I just ordered a couple new pairs of sunglasses and eyeglasses, and I know that it's fall and it's technically not sunglasses season, but I always wear sunglasses every time I walk outside because I don't want premature wrinkles around my eyes from sun damage and squinting. So I actually ordered two very different styles of sunglasses, so I have options for whatever outfit I'm wearing if I want to dress them up or dress them down. So I was actually wearing these sunglasses in an Instagram picture I posted of me when my family and I went apple picking. They're called the Muse Rowan, and I absolutely love the way they look and how light they are and how fancy I feel, and I just think they're so nice. And I love green too. You guys know I love green. And then I also ordered these Oakley sunglasses specifically because they're unlike anything I've ever worn, and I wanted to kind of step outside my comfort zone, add a little color to my life. They have the mirrored lenses. I don't know if you can tell. So the frames are blue, and then they have like the orange mirrored lenses. I don't know if you can see. I'm wearing sunglasses, so I can't even see if you can see, but they're awesome. As far as glasses, if you watched my towels from the Everglades video, you saw me wearing these. These are the Muse times Hilary Duff Lily. So many of you wanted to know where I got these glasses from, how cool you thought they looked, and I'm here to tell you I got them from glassesusa.com. They are now my all-time favorite pair of glasses I have ever owned. And I mean, honestly, I find that most of my favorite glasses actually have come from the Muse times Hilary Duff line. I mean, I've always loved Hilary Duff. I've always admired her. I think she's an amazing woman, and glassesusa.com obviously thought so as well because they partnered with Hilary Duff to design a line comprised of more than 80 frame styles rooted on the actress's mission to empower and help women feel confident and comfortable in their own skin. Every aspect of it, from the packaging, a personal message from Hilary Duff, the co-designed frames, and the names that were inspired by strong, influential women, designed to give customers a unique experience. The collection is available exclusively online at glassesusa.com, and it reflects Hilary's style as well as the women who have inspired her personally and professionally. The Muse times Hilary Duff collection is priced around $100 per pair, much more affordable than traditional retail prices. So if you're interested in getting yourself some glasses for much cheaper than in the store without leaving your house, because have you ever attempted to try glasses on while wearing a face mask? It's not fun. There's not a really good indicator of what those glasses look like with that face mask on. It kind of sucks. Just check out the link in the description box to get 60% off your first pair of frames at glassesusa.com. And all the glasses I've received will also, like I said, be in the description box as well if you're interested. Thank you so much to Glasses USA for sponsoring this video, and let's dive right back into the case of Missy Bevers. So as always, to understand what happened at the end, we have to go back to the beginning. Terry Leanne Strickland was born on August 9th, 1970 in Graham, Texas. And even though her legal birth name was Terry, she went by the nickname Missy for most of her life. So that's what we will call her in this video. In 1997, Missy was working at a Beal's department store when she became friendly with one of her coworkers, a woman named Marcia Tucker. Years later, after Missy's death, Martha would remember that she liked Missy right away because she felt that Missy was a down-to-earth country girl, and Marcia also felt that her oldest son, Brandon Bevers, 7 years Missy's senior, would like Missy as well. Brandon and Missy did exchange numbers, they began to chat, and it wasn't long before they were planning their first date, which would happen during Missy's lunch break one afternoon. Now, Brandon was employed at a family-run fuel distribution company, but on the day that their date was supposed to take place, he was going to a wedding, so he showed up for this very informal lunch in a full tuxedo, which amused Missy to no end. And 9 months later, on June 20th, 1998, Missy and Brandon were married. They went on an Alaskan cruise for their honeymoon, and when they got back to Texas, Missy got her certification to be a special education teacher, which she did very well for 2 years until her first daughter, Hannah, was born in 2001. 2 years later, the couple's second daughter, Allie, was born, and 4 years after that, their youngest daughter, Sarah, was born. Now, after Hannah, the oldest daughter, came into the world and their lives, Missy decided she wanted to put her career on hold and be a full-time mother. And according to every single person who knew her, nothing was more important to Missy than her children. But once Sarah was in second grade, Missy decided to pursue a career in fitness training because she was passionate about staying in shape, having successfully done so after each of her pregnancies. And for those of you listening who have, experienced multiple pregnancies, you know that it is very difficult sometimes to get back into shape after having a baby because there just isn't the time or the energy. So Missy ended up hooking up with a company called Camp Gladiator, which according to their website is a fun and challenging personalized workout program created by husband and wife team Allie and Jeff Davidson in a Dallas parking lot, and they created Camp Gladiator to fill a hole in the fitness industry. Camp Gladiator claims it's their mission to positively impact the physical fitness and ultimately the lives of as many people as possible. So it really was, or seemed to be, a perfect fit for Missy to become a Camp Gladiator trainer, since she had always been a person who wanted to make the lives of those around her better. She was a true and steady friend who would always give an ear to listen or a shoulder to cry on. She was a God-fearing woman who felt it was important to raise her children in the church. And she was a normal woman, a woman like me, a woman like my sister or my sister-in-law, a woman like my friends, a woman like you, perhaps. She posted proud mom pictures of her 3 daughters on Facebook. On April 13th, 2016, she posted a picture of her oldest daughter, Hannah, wishing her luck at her first regional golf tournament, saying, quote, "I'm praying you shoot your best personal scores today and tomorrow. I love you and sorry I can't be there. Believe me, I'm in tears right now. Go kick booty, girl," end quote. A few days later, she posted on Facebook thanking her daughter Allie for helping at her 9 a.m. Camp Gladiator classes. She posted funny memes. She went to Target to shop for sunglasses. She went to Starbucks. She posted pictures of her family on Easter. She posted pictures of food prep and motivational words that she felt some people may have needed to hear. And she was known to say quite often, "Wake up and be awesome," which is exactly what she was planning on doing that fateful day of April 18th, which would be the last day of her life. Now, I want to quickly talk about Missy's relationship with her husband, Brandon. No marriage is perfect, and everyone has its challenges. I definitely don't think that anyone can or would dispute that. Later, when Brandon would talk about his wife after she died, I got the distinct impression that he wasn't necessarily too involved with her work at Camp Gladiator, but he tolerated it and he was supportive of it. He understood that she had put her passions on hold for quite a long time to be an amazing mother to their daughters, and now that the girls were more grown up and independent, it was important to Missy that she pursue something that gave her personal fulfillment, and it was important to him to give her the space and freedom to do that. But he wasn't super involved with it on a regular basis. I think he felt, as many husbands historically have, that Camp Gladiator was something to keep Missy busy and out of the house so she wouldn't become a bored and miserable housewife. It was only after her death that Brandon realized how important Missy had been to so many people, how much her students had loved and respected her, and how she actually had made an impactful change in so many lives. And he felt proud of her. It's sad, but not uncommon for married couples to live their lives almost, together, but kind of traveling on different paths that may not often meet. It doesn't make him a bad man. It doesn't make him a negligent husband. I find that this is actually, and sadly, the norm in many marriages. Once children become introduced and the stress of life and paying the bills looms over you, people tend to disconnect from each other. Now, we aren't going to start with the day of the murder. We're going to go back a few days before that to April 14th, when Missy left Red Oak, Texas, and traveled to Austin for the Camp Gladiator Total Transformation Boot Camp. Now, I'm certainly no expert on Camp Gladiator, so if there are those of you who are and know more than me, please feel free to correct me in the comments respectfully. But from what I can tell, the Total Transformation Boot Camp is supposed to be a month-long challenge, which will measure your baseline baseline at the start of the month and then help you track your progress throughout the month with unlimited group sessions that are led by all-star trainers. The camp is usually for new members to Camp Gladiator, but Missy was already an experienced trainer. So I'm just going to assume the company wanted its trainers to come to Austin, where the Camp Gladiator headquarters and arena was located at that time at 9185 Research Boulevard, and then they would possibly have classes and discussions about how these trainers should be running their boot camps in their own cities, because not all of them were working out of Austin, obviously. Then these trainers would go back to their homes and implement what they had learned in Austin with their own campers. On Thursday, April 14th, Missy posted a picture of herself on Facebook with the caption, "Bucky's Stop, on my way to change lives in Austin, total transformation." Obviously, I'm from New York. I'm not from the area, but I looked it up and it appears that Bucky's is a chain of gas stations and travel centers in Texas. And, you could stop there to fill up your tank on a road trip or stock up on drinks and snacks for the drive. If you were me, of course, Missy most likely didn't eat gas station snacks because she was healthy, and I am not. This same day, Missy arrived in Austin, which would have been just under a 3-hour drive from Red Oak, where she lived. She posted from the Camp Gladiator Arena, which, as I said, was located on Research Boulevard in Austin and looks to be a building with indoor gym space as well as outdoor space for obstacle courses and the like. The indoor classes would include things like kickboxing, weight training, yoga classes, etc. And as you can see from these photos that she posted, the outdoor arena has more, kind of badass boot camp stuff that I would never be able to do in my current inactive condition. She captioned these photos with the words, "CG Arena. This is what I'm talking about. CG Midlothian, someday your trainers are going to take you on a field trip here. Oh, hang on. Join CG Games and you can come experience it all." So it looks like the CG Games is a Camp Gladiator event, a competition that tests endurance, strength, agility, and speed. I'm going to get this out of the way now because I know there will be questions and comments. There is a fee to join Camp Gladiator. There is a fee to participate in the CG Games. So yes, I'm sure Missy was coached to advertise her experiences in Austin in order to compel people to sign up for the program and the event. But that doesn't mean that Camp Gladiator is a pyramid scheme or like an MLM, or that she was doing anything wrong by participating in these advertising methods. As far as I can tell, like any fitness program or training program, there is a charge. You have to pay money, but it does seem that Camp Gladiator, for the most part, delivers results. So that's what makes them a legitimate company instead of a pyramid scheme. And, obviously other things distinguish it as being a legitimate company and not a pyramid scheme. I'm not trying to be, just boiling it down to one thing. And honestly, getting into shape is hard, so I don't mind paying for something if it works. So what we're not going to do is talk shit in the comments about how Missy was living this fake life like Shanann Watts and putting all this lifestyle stuff on her social media in order to trick people into getting into something that would just make them lose money. I'm always open to hear your opinions and viewpoints, but blaming the victim who is no longer around to defend his or herself is a boundary I set that I don't want crossed. And that goes for Shanann Watts as well. Since this Netflix thing has come out, I've had an influx of comments on all of my Watts videos, most of them saying incredibly negative things about Shanann. I won't argue with you in the comments. I'm not going to try to justify why we shouldn't be blaming the victim. I will just hide you from the channel and be done with you. On my platform, we show nothing but respect for those who lost their lives as victims, period. So with that out of the way, let's move on. The next day, on April 15th, Missy posted this on Facebook, quote, "Please say a prayer for Brandon Bevers this morning while he is having a minor surgery today. I hope you feel better soon, honey. Love you," end quote. Now, her husband, Brandon, responds to this with, quote, "Thanks, Strick. I'm going to convince the surgery team the doctor is actually conducting a frontal lobotomy, liven the place up a bit," end quote. So Brandon is referring to his wife as Strick in this comment, which I assume is a play on her maiden name, Strickland, and his response is cute, lighthearted, and funny. Now, I can't find for sure what his minor surgery was. It's reported as being something different depending on the source. However, it's not important for our purposes, and also he has the right to his privacy. What is important is that this day, Brandon's mother, Marcia Tucker, drove him to go have this surgery because Missy was out of town. And afterwards, Missy texted Martha to thank her for helping out and to tell her that she loved her. Missy and Martha were very close. And this would be the very last text Martha would ever receive from her daughter-in-law. The next day, Brandon would be boarding a plane to go on a trip of his own to Biloxi, Mississippi. This seems to have been an annual company-organized fishing trip that had been planned for quite a while. And on the morning of Sunday, April 16th, Brandon posted on his Facebook page at 5:20 a.m. that he was taking a noon flight out of Texas that same afternoon. At 7:30 p.m., it seemed he finally arrived in Biloxi, and 20 minutes later, Missy posted on her Facebook page the time and place for the following Monday morning class for Camp Gladiator, saying, quote, "If it's raining, we're still training. No excuses. You are gladiators." End quote. Now, from what I can tell, Missy drove from Austin back home to Red Oak most likely Sunday afternoon and arrived home sometime in the evening, probably shortly before her husband landed in Mississippi. A few hours later, at 9:15 in the evening, Brandon posted a picture of the exterior of a Biloxi restaurant called Half Shell Oyster House, saying, quote, "First stop after a 5-hour plane trip," end quote. Not long after, at 9:23 p.m., Missy posted on Facebook that she was going to bed because she needed to be up at 3:30 the next morning. According to Brandon, he called his wife from Biloxi at around 9:30 p.m. to say goodnight, at which point she was already half asleep. She told him she hoped that he would sleep well and that she loved him, and this is the last time Brandon would ever hear his wife's voice. We are now going to go over the timeline of April 18th, the day of Missy Bevers' mysterious and still unsolved attack and murder. And since I believe it's easier to understand these things in chronological order, our timeline actually starts before Missy even woke up that morning. So for a point of reference, the church that Missy was going to that morning is located on Highway 287 in Midlothian, Texas. A little ways down on that same highway is this place. It's a store called the SWFA Outdoors store. In many media outlets and blogs and things like that, when I read about this case, the SWFA Outdoor Store has often been referred to as a gun store, and they do obviously sell guns and ammo there, but you can also purchase hunting and camping equipment. It's just, an outdoorsy kind of store that sells stuff for outdoorsy kinds of people. Not me necessarily, but people that like to camp and do outdoors kinds of things. Now, from the Creekside Church to SWFA, the outdoor store, it would only be about a 2-minute drive. At 2 o'clock in the morning on April 18th, surveillance cameras on the outside of the SWFA store picked up a light-colored sedan pulling into the parking lot. I'm going to play that video for you now and sort of discuss what is happening and what I see, but if you see something different, let me know in the comments. So in this video, we can clearly see it is dark because it's so early in the morning and it's also raining. We can see the vehicle pulling off the main road into the parking lot, turning their headlights off before they even enter the parking lot, which I think is incredibly suspicious. The car drives off camera, but from a different angle, from what I assume to be a different camera, we can see the car's brake lights go on before the cameras switch again, showing this vehicle sort of circling around a group of parking spaces before slowing down to almost a stop, accelerating again, and going around what I assume to be the side of the building before being picked up on a different surveillance camera. As the car proceeds around the building, its headlights turn on and then off again, twice, as if they're being blinked, as if somebody was purposely almost sending a signal. It appears as if the car drives all the way around the building back to the front parking lot, which faces the highway, the whole time doing these little stops before accelerating and continuing on. It comes to a little stop just before the entrance to the parking lot that they had used a few minutes prior. It looks like they may have done another loop around the parking lot before finally coming to a stop in a parking spot directly under one of the overhead parking lot lights. They stay parked here for several minutes before turning the headlights of the car on, pulling out of the spot, looping back around to the same entrance that they came in, and putting on their right directional before pulling back out onto the highway. Okay, why is this important? And we will dissect this video a bit more later on, but why am I telling you about this video? Because a little under 2 hours later, just down the road from that SWFA outdoors shop and this odd motorist's behavior, someone broke into the Creekside Church dressed in what appears to be head-to-toe SWAT gear. And luckily, we have some of this on surveillance as well from the interior church cameras. At 3:50 a.m., the suspect is seen on interior church surveillance, and it's tough to really analyze this video because I suspect the copy available to the public is not in chronological order and also may not be a representation of the complete footage that law enforcement had or has, but we will still do our best to track this suspect's movements in the church before Missy's arrival. I'm going to play the video clips that we do have and tell you what we might be seeing on this video before putting up a floor plan of the church and telling you what police think went down that morning. So you see this person first on surveillance walking in a hall. They open one door and they appear to be looking into that room for a bit. They walk away from that room, leaving the door open, and attempt to open the door right next to it, but they find it locked. At this point, we can see something in the suspect's hand, which looks like a hammer or maybe a crowbar, and it appears that this person tries to use this tool to get the door open, but that doesn't work, so the suspect gives up and keeps walking down the hall. Going off camera and being picked up by another camera, turning to their left down another hall where they grab the handle of a door, which ends up being one of those half doors where the bottom and top open independently from each other, and they open the bottom door and then the top door before walking inside briefly, and then moving on down the hall, leaving both doors open. For a while, the suspect is obscured by these open doors, but then you see him or her walk back down the hall in the direction they just came from, towards the open doors. At this point, it can be seen that they have a flashlight on their helmet, and they sort of go off into a little alcove and disappear off camera. Now the angle changes again, showing an empty hallway and a door opening, which the suspect walks through into the hallway. They can then be partially seen swinging something at the wall or swinging at something on the wall before disappearing off camera again. This suspect was inside the church when Missy arrived, thinking she was completely alone, and she entered this very dangerous situation not knowing what was about to happen. So here is the layout of the Creekside Church. Law enforcement believes the perpetrator entered the church through the kitchen door at the north side of the building, this kitchen being signified on this layout as room 7. They believe this because the metal kitchen door had a glass window and that window was found broken, meaning more than likely the suspect shattered the window, reached in, and opened the door. This person then seems to have gone from the kitchen into the adjoining room, which we're calling room 8, and that would have been the cafeteria. He or she then walks out of room 8, and that's when they're first captured on surveillance at 3:50 a.m. Now keep in mind, due to the surveillance cameras on the exterior of the church allegedly not working that night, we have no way of knowing what time the perpetrator actually entered the church or how long he or she remained in the kitchen before going into the adjoining cafeteria. We also have no way of knowing how long he or she remained in room 8, the cafeteria, before exiting into the hallway. It could have been a few minutes or a few hours. It's also worth noting that there were a few windows in the kitchen that were also found broken, but these windows were pretty high up, and during a later press conference, the Midlothian police claimed they had no reason to believe the perpetrator had entered through these broken windows, which leads us to our next question. Well, why were they broken then? It is my theory that these windows were broken by the same suspect who entered the church by breaking the window of the kitchen door, the same suspect who later and brutally took Missy Bevers' life. I think that he or she broke those windows knowing they wouldn't be able to enter through them, but they broke them simply as a test. Maybe the suspect didn't know whether or not the church had an alarm system that would go off in the instance of someone trying to break in. Maybe the suspect didn't know whether it was a silent alarm or one of those loud and blaring ones that happens as soon as a window's broken or there's some sort of forced entry. So they broke a few windows and then hid nearby to see if police would arrive. And when the police didn't arrive, the suspect, he or she, returned to the church knowing it was safe to actually enter the building at that time. Maybe those windows were broken a little bit before 2 a.m. And then maybe the perpetrator drove to a nearby location that was close enough to see the church, maybe like an outdoors store, and then they could sit in the parking lot with their headlights off and wait for something to happen. And that is where I believe the SWFA surveillance does come in and may be relevant and may be connected to the death of Missy Bevers. Now, maybe does not mean I'm certain, but it is very suspicious, in my opinion, for a car to pull into a parking lot at 2 a.m., shut off their headlights, and then just wait. Maybe whoever was in that car was changing into some different clothes, like SWAT gear, for instance. But once again, we will come back to that SWFA footage later on. Back to the surveillance video inside the church. Once the suspect left room 8, they turned down the hall, going in the direction of the kitchen, sort of running their gloved hand along the wall. The best way I can describe the behavior of this individual is casual, nonchalant, not in any kind of hurry with seemingly no urgent goal. They just kind of wander about, opening doors, looking in, and moving on. At some point, the suspect walks down the hallway, running alongside the west end of the church, heading in the direction of the southwest entrance, which Missy would soon be entering through. This person walks about halfway down that hallway, and there does seem to be a skip in the video at this point, something missing in the video. It seems that this hallway, which holds rooms 21 through 15, would have been the location of the church offices, and it's unclear as to whether the perpetrator tried to enter these offices or if he or she actually did enter these offices before we see him or her on camera again entering that alcove area with their headlamp on. Now, this alcove would lead to what the floor plan has labeled as the worship center. And in this area, there is no surveillance cameras. So once again, we don't know how long the perpetrator was in there or what they did while inside, or even really if they went in at all. I'm wondering if he or she did actually enter the worship center or sanctuary, and knowing that there would be no cameras in there, this is where they would lay in wait for Missy to arrive, which she did at about 4:16. She parked under the awning at the southwest entrance, which is where her class was scheduled to meet her at 5. A few minutes later, she entered the church, but we, as the general public, have no idea what happened after that. And according to the Midlothian police, they have no footage of the actual attack. But I assume they would have footage of her coming into the church, which we have never seen, and an idea of which direction she went in after that, which we once again have never seen. It's very unclear to me even where she ended up being found by her students later. Was it the same classroom or area where she normally held her Camp Gladiator class? It's all very unknown. We don't know how she would have gotten to this area, whether she went there of her own free will and the person was laying in wait for her, meaning they knew where she was headed, or whether she walked in and then this person sprung out of hiding and forced her to go wherever she ended up being killed. Once again, we don't really know any of this stuff, although I'm sure obviously law enforcement does. Now at about 4:35 a.m., the first Camp Gladiator attendee arrived at the Creekside Church. I do want to make a point before I continue with this timeline. I've covered a lot of cases on this channel, and it's very rare to find one that is as rife with disinformation and inaccurate reporting as this one is. Luckily, I was able to talk to my new friend Tim Koval, who produces the Gumshoe Stories podcast, And in my opinion, he knows more about this case than pretty much anyone out there, besides obviously the police on the case. And according to Tim's blog titled 10 Myths of the Missy Bevers Murder, there have been reports that the first camper arrived early, giving rise to questions as to why this person did not enter the church upon arrival. Tim writes that the first camper was not really early at all, and that even though Missy did often allow campers to come before 5 a.m. for what she called early bird workouts, and these workouts would fit better with their schedules if they had to work earlier and they couldn't make the 5 a.m. class, there were only 2 campers who were consistent early birders, and one had decided to skip camp that morning while the other had gotten a flat tire on the way. The camper who arrived on the scene first had never been to a class with Missy before. It was his first time. Therefore, he didn't know that even though the door to the church was locked, all he would have to do was press a button on the door which would disengage the lock and allow him to enter. So this first-time camper simply waited underneath the awning and out of the rain until another camper arrived who did know about the button that would unlock the door, which seems to have happened about 25 minutes later. Now, when the other 4 campers arrived, they entered the church at 5 a.m., and that is when they saw Missy, dead, surrounded by broken glass and one or more of the tools her attacker had been carrying. Within 10 minutes, both the fire and police department had been dispatched and had arrived on the scene, and one of the campers called Missy's husband, Brandon, who was still out of town, to tell him what had happened. Brandon, it seems, either drove the rental car he had already been using in Biloxi, or he rented a car specifically to drive back home, because when he arrived back in Texas at 3 that afternoon, he was driving a car with Mississippi plates. By 3:30 p.m., the Midlothian police gave their first press conference on the case. This press conference was led by Midlothian Police Chief Carl Smith. During the press conference, Chief Smith goes over what they know, or at least what they want the press to know, which is that Missy was killed and there was evidence of forced entry at the church. He also refers to the suspect as an unknown male and tells the public and reporters how they can find the surveillance video from the church on YouTube so that they might look at it and hopefully help identify who the suspect is. Chief Smith says the suspect was dressed in what appeared to be full tactical gear and believes that the intent for dressing this way was to look like and resemble a police officer. Now let's talk about what the suspect was actually wearing. We've got some black boots, black pants, some sort of black long-sleeved shirt or jacket, a vest labeled police on the front and back, a balaclava, which is a mask that covers your neck and the lower portion of your face. I have one that I wear when I go skiing or I'm going to be out in the cold for a while. The suspect was also wearing a helmet with a pull-down visor as well as a light either connected to the helmet or it was some sort of detachable headlamp. It's pretty tough to tell. They were also wearing black gloves. So basically, not an inch of flesh could really be seen. And I don't believe, in my opinion, it was necessarily the suspect's intention to resemble a police officer. I think that he or she was more concerned with hiding their identity as completely as possible. Chief Smith goes on to say in this press conference that things like this don't happen in their community, and truthfully, Missy's murder was the first in Midlothian in 7 years, which is crazy to me because I live in a city where I feel like there's at least 7 a day. So during this press conference, the police make it seem as if they believe this was just a random burglary and Missy happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, a reporter asks if they have evidence of anything being taken from the church, and Chief Smith replies that they have no evidence anything was taken, but there was quite a bit of damage inside the church.
But all scenarios are on the table right now. We're just now really getting into the meat of this investigation, so we'll be looking at every avenue of investigation, following that through to the end that we can get.
Was there evidence of burglary? Was there evidence of things stolen from the church?
We don't have any idea or any evidence that things were actually taken from the facility, but a lot of damage within the facility.
We will discuss this more in the theories portion of the video, but I'm going to tell you that I personally do not believe this was a random burglary. I think she was targeted. As I said, the perpetrator wandered casually around the church for some time before Missy got there. They don't seem to be looking for anything in particular. There's no sense of urgency. If I'm robbing a place, I have an idea of what I want to take and where it might be located. And I'm going to try to get in and out of there as fast as possible because what you're doing is illegal and you don't want to get caught. So in my humble opinion, the behavior of the suspect made it appear as if they were just kind of killing time until Missy arrived, wandering about, opening doors, looking around. He or she didn't take anything, and even after killing Missy, the suspect still didn't take anything, which makes me believe that this suspect felt they had accomplished what they'd gone there to do, and now they could leave. I also think it's a big stretch for law enforcement to say that a routine burglary would so quickly turn into a homicide, right? So if you're robbing a church and then somebody comes in, as a robber, as like your run-of-the-mill burglar, hamburglar, as your run-of-the-mill thief, you're not necessarily going to want to escalate to killing people so quickly. So if somebody walks in on you, you may like bop them over the head, so that they don't see who you are, even though they wouldn't see who you were because you were dressed like, a Power Ranger. So Missy wouldn't have even been able to identify this person. There's a million things that this person could have done to complete their robbery and then just kind of get out of there without taking a life and risk getting caught and then going to prison for murder instead of robbery. This person could have just, grabbed Missy, told her, be quiet, don't do anything, tied her up, could have just bopped her on the head, left her knocked out, left her unconscious. What happened to Missy seems to be personal. But that's just my opinion, and we also have to understand this press conference was given very shortly after Missy was found dead, the same day, just hours later, and they were in the very early stages of the investigation. The general tone of the press conference was that they believed the perpetrator was male, and that this seemed to be an unfortunate accident with Missy walking in on a burglary. The Midlothian police did not disclose how Missy died, even though a reporter slyly slipped in a question where, I forget if it was a man or a woman, but they said, did you say she was shot?
Chief, did you say the victim was shot?
I did not say that. No, sir.
Do we know how the victim was killed?
We're not releasing any information on her injuries right now.
To me, it's clear that this was a journalistic tactic to get the chief to reveal something he had actually not said, but he didn't fall for it, and he informed the press that they were not prepared to reveal Missy's cause of death. Usually, in an investigation like this, the police will want to keep important details such as this very close to the vest, and they will kind of use this information if they happen to interview a suspect, and this person reveals knowledge of something that the police had not released to the press and the media. So really, the only person who would know these details is somebody who had been present at the time of the murder. Now, they do mention in this press conference that they have no outside footage from the church since the surveillance camera on the exterior of the building was not functioning at that time, which does lead me to wonder how they knew exactly what time she arrived. But they may have surmised that from cell phone data that they would acquire later on. I'm not sure. But the police saying in this press conference that the exterior surveillance system wasn't working, it does become a point of contention for me later, as there's conflicting information delivered by another Midlothian police officer that suggests they might have been working. By 6:30 that evening, the Midlothian Police Department had executed a search warrant for Missy's 2012 Ford F-150 pickup truck, which was still parked at the church with her purse, iPad, and other personal effects inside. Earlier that day, Brandon Bevers was accosted outside of his home by a reporter, and I say accosted because I think it's so disgusting how reporters don't even give these people a moment to breathe after the tragedy of losing a loved one. But of course, we know how the true crime community and the media are thinking in the aftermath of a death like Missy's. We know the stats. We know the true crime party line made popular by podcasts such as My Favorite Murder. It's always the husband. When a woman goes missing or a woman dies, it's always the husband. That's what they say, right? And if you've been with me for a while, you know I don't necessarily subscribe to this sort of thinking because I feel sometimes we can be so focused on the husband that we might miss other leads that bring us to the true culprit. But we cannot ignore the data either. In the United States alone, nearly 3 women are killed every day by their current or past romantic partners, and you're much more likely to become the victim of a violent crime at the hands of someone you know rather than a total stranger. We have personally witnessed this many times just in the past 5 years or so. A woman goes missing or turns up dead. Her husband or boyfriend gives an interview, and his speech patterns and body language are picked apart and dissected until everyone is sure he is lying. Now, in the case of Chris Watts, we were right. We were absolutely right. But also, we have cases like Heidi Broussard, where a grieving man was pulled over the coals and judged guilty in the court of public opinion, only to come to find he had nothing to do with the actual crime. There was a lot of this finger pointing and speculation in regards to Brandon Bevers. And to get this out of the way, I will say that I personally don't believe he had anything to do with what happened to his wife, but we will talk about that more later on. Here's a clip of Brandon's interview with Richard Ray from Fox 4 in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Tell me, Brandon, where were you when you heard about it? Can you give me a kind of a reaction?
I was in Biloxi, Mississippi, about to go on a fishing trip down on the Chandeleur Islands, and I heard about it this morning. I received a phone call from a couple of Missy's campers, and had I been out on that ship, I would have had no contact for a few days, but
What do you want people to know about your wife?
my wife was she was very passionate about transforming people's lives physically and mentally. She became involved in physical fitness a few years ago, and she transformed herself into just a very fit person, and her desire was to do that for others. And I've seen it. I've seen her do that for others, and I've seen the impact that it's had on other people, and I'm very thankful for that, and I'm thankful for her being such a good wife and a good mother to our children. And she's had a very impactful relationship with a lot of people here in our community, and I'm very thankful for all of it.
I can only barely imagine what you must be going through, what you and your family must be going through now.
I haven't had time to absorb this yet. I just got home about 15 minutes ago, and I haven't had time to reel it in. I haven't had time.
Had the police talk to you already?
I've talked to them on the phone. They haven't given me any detailed information. They've given me bits and pieces that are probably as much as you know right now, but I don't know any specifics.
I promised this would be short. Anything else you'd like to say to the community about what has happened and about your wife?
I've lived here. We've lived here for 20 years, and we've been in this community for longer than that. I have personally, and I've never known of anything of this nature to happen. I pray that whoever did this will be caught.
Now, this is a very short interaction, just over 3 minutes, but if we read the comments, we have the armchair detectives / body language experts already throwing in their 2 cents. We have a comment that says, is it just me, or is he staring at the ground most of the time during all his interviews? The lack of eye contact as well as emotions is what concerns me. We have another comment that says, 15 minutes home and he's giving interviews already. We have another comment that says, it was a hit made by him. Another one that says, very telling body language here. Still another one that says, out of town, strange. She died when he was away. Coincidental? ? So I truly hope none of these people ever have to go through a loss like Brandon Bevers was forced to endure, only to arrive home and have a microphone shoved in their face. Everyone handles intense emotions differently, and they mourn in their own way. We should never judge the way a person handles the loss of a loved one. This was still new and fresh. He was most likely exhausted and trying to come to terms with the fact that his wife was never coming home and that his 3 daughters no longer had a mother. He was probably staring at the ground because he didn't want to talk to this reporter. It's not as if he called this news network and made sure the reporter was waiting for him when he got home. But think about it. If he'd refused to speak to this guy, this reporter, how many comments would have followed saying, "What is he hiding? Why doesn't he want to talk to the press?" It's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. And I think it's really problematic to judge these people on a public forum where they might have to see you accusing them of murdering the person they just lost and they are missing and they're grieving for. A lack of visible emotion does not mean he isn't feeling emotions. It just means he hasn't had the time to grapple with them yet or allow the finality of the situation to set in. On April 19th, Missy's autopsy was completed by the Dallas County Medical Examiner, but still all that is known by the public is that Missy died from a head wound and that the person in this video used an unknown instrument to cause her death at that location. When pressed for more information, Midlothian police refused to elaborate, citing the ongoing investigation and their desire to keep the upper hand and the strategic advantage with the flow of information. Now, later that day, a warrant was issued for the data on Missy's electronic devices. In this warrant, written by Cody Moon, an investigator with the Midlothian Police Department, it specifically states that Missy had multiple puncture wounds on her head and chest, and these were consistent with the tools the suspect was carrying. Now pay close attention to that detail because this is the official story that we heard from the police for a long time, that she was killed with one of these tools that the suspect was carrying and she was struck by these weapons, ending her life. This warrant was specific in that it wanted access to any calls, texts, emails, or messages that Missy had sent or received prior to the incident. On this same day, April 19th, the Midlothian police make another statement, this time through the Assistant Chief of Police, Kevin Johnson, who told a local news station, quote, "We are backing off our statement that the suspect on the video was a man. I know we said he over and over again yesterday, and that was a mistake. There's a lot of speculation based on the gait and appearance that this person may be a woman. It's a legitimate question right now. We no longer will say the suspect is a man." End quote. Now, this is not to say that the suspect is definitely a woman. The police just wanted to clarify that they could not be totally sure one way or the other, but there is evidence that suggests it might be a woman. Let's talk about this distinctive gait that the suspect in the church had that law enforcement's talking about. He or she sort of walks like a duck, in my opinion, the way I walked when I was 8 months pregnant. This could be as a result of many different scenarios. Maybe the suspect just walks like that. Maybe they had an injury to a leg or a foot that caused them to begin walking this way. Maybe the suspect is a heavily pregnant woman. Or maybe they were going the extra mile to disguise their actual body type, so they dressed in many layers, therefore causing their normal center of gravity to be thrown off. Or maybe the boots this person was wearing were several sizes too large for him or her, causing this distinctive gait to happen. And that could mean that the gear they were wearing was stolen or borrowed. Although it would be difficult to nail down the suspect's actual weight or body type, police were able to determine that he or she would be between 5'2" and 5'7", and that he or she appeared to have lighter skin. On April 19th, Brandon Bevers spoke to reporters once again. This time, several of the vultures were gathered outside of his home, and I'm going to play a few clips, but I wanted to highlight the most important moments from this interview, as it is significantly longer than the one from the day before. Brandon specifically said to these reporters that he doesn't want to be interviewed, and he's sort of allowing this to happen with so many different media networks so he can kind of one and done it. Like, talk to all of them, give all of them a statement, they can run with it. Hopefully this would mean he doesn't have to continue doing interviews and he could just do it all at once.
Y'all ready?
Yeah, give me a second. I have an issue with my camera. 1 second, sorry.
Brian, just tell us, what are you going through right now? I mean, today, right now?
Well, I don't want to do interviews, okay? I just want to make a statement. Is that all right?
Tell us what you want to say.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
I said, hang on, I'm having a problem with the camera.
Yeah, let him get ready. And y'all can funnel this up to the other media outlets, okay?
Yes, sir.
And I can be done with this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We appreciate you coming out. We know it's got to be terribly difficult, and we're really just hoping you'll speak from your heart about your wife.
And may we all just say, we are sorry. We are sorry for your family's loss.
He described his late wife as being a godly woman who was passionate about changing people's lives with fitness, and he has recently now been able to see for himself how many people she had touched. Brandon said Missy was an amazing wife and mother, and that her children were the most important thing in her life.
Personally, I haven't involved myself in a lot of what she does, but now that I'm seeing some of her campers, I've noticed a substantial impact that she's had on so many people's lives, and I'm very proud of her. And I just want it to be publicly known that we are very proud of all of the passion and effort that she's put into so many people's lives. In terms of, obtaining a story to pull at heartstrings and stuff like that, I'm not looking here for the media to sensationalize a tragedy, okay? My family needs, we need our privacy, and that's why I wanted to do this in one time only, but we need our privacy.
You do understand, sir, that we are here because we want to help the police catch whoever did this as well.
Yes. But as far as any, one-on-one interview, tug at the heartstrings, kind of stories, sensationalized, I'm not here for that.
I don't think any of us are trying to sensationalize. I mean, your wife was a mother and a woman who touched so many lives through her work.
Correct. You are correct.
And that's why, we want to share her story. And you know that better than anyone.
Correct.
You knew her better than anyone. The kind of woman she was, the kind of mother she was.
Well, she was a very good mother.
Brandon also talked about the suspect in the video, saying that he personally did not believe this person was wearing actual tactical gear.
The person wasn't in tactical gear. That wasn't tactical gear. That was a shoddy amount of clothing to look like some type of an enforcement officer. It wasn't real tactical clothing.
What did it look like to you?
From the video, as best I could tell, it looked like maybe motorcycle boots or some type of military-style boot. I couldn't tell the pants. It looked like some kind of flimsy, like sweatpants or something. I couldn't really tell. But the jacket was just a generic police jacket, kind of a velour-looking police jacket. And I couldn't even identify the helmet. The person was wearing a helmet, and I couldn't identify whether it was a motorcycle helmet. I don't know if there is a motorcycle avenue on that outfit, or if it was a tactical avenue, because the helmet, I couldn't even tell what it was.
But it looked as if the suspect had sort of pieced together items of clothing and equipment to give the appearance of tactical gear. Brandon also said that he personally did not believe his wife was targeted, and he got the impression from watching the video that the perpetrator did not know Missy was going to be there.
But if you look at the video, and from what I understand, the perpetrator came through the back door, okay, and spent several minutes rummaging from room to room. If I'm not mistaken, he might have broke some glass in this room looking for something, broke some glass in this room looking for something, spent some time in the kitchen area. But by the time my wife arrived, I don't know of the video at that point, but according to the police, shortly after the altercation, needless to say, it's the opinion of the police department that the perpetrator didn't know the presence of my wife, or that she was going to be there, I think. my wife walked in on a robbery. That's just an opinion. That's not fact.
So you don't think she was targeted, or like that she was particularly?
In strictly my opinion, I don't think she was targeted.
Brandon does talk a bit about his marriage to Missy, and he says something that I'm going to discuss later in more depth. He says that every day for the past 10 months, Missy had made it a point to text him and tell him that she hoped he was having a good day and that she loved him. In the comments under this interview, people took issue with this statement, saying, Brandon and Missy had been married for 20 years. Why was Brandon only mentioning the past 10 months? And I think I do have the answer to that. But like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Later that evening, a candlelight vigil was held for Missy at Long Branch Elementary School, where over 100 friends and family were able to gather, comfort each other, and celebrate her life. On April 20th, Assistant Police Chief Kevin Johnson told the press that his department had enlisted the help of the ATF, the Texas Rangers, and the FBI. They had brought in a police dog named Titan to the Creekside Church to search for gunshot residue and/or potential explosives. And Kevin Johnson also announced that they were requesting surveillance videos from nearby businesses. And he wanted people to know that Brandon had been cooperative with police and that his alibi had checked out. And, his alibi was confirmed to be true. He was where he said he was. The next day, on April 21st, a warrant for AT&T cell tower data was requested with a specific interest in information from April 18th within a 5-mile radius of the church between the hours of 3 and 5 a.m. Now, the author of this warrant, Cody McKinney, an investigator with the Midlothian Police Department, stated that his probable cause in requesting this information is due to the fact that he believes the suspect was in possession of a cell phone for the following purposes. 1, confirming through social media and/or other applications the updated workout times and locations as posted by Mrs. Bevers. 2, communication in the nature of calls, messages, texting, emails, push-to-talk, and walkie-talkie. 3, using smartphone capabilities to photograph, record, and/or video the victim and the murderous act. And 4, using functional applications such as clock or timing capabilities, GPS locating applications, and flashlight. Now keep in mind, this is a warrant that might be hard to get. Asking a big company like AT&T to essentially compromise their customers' privacy for the sake of this investigation, it's a big ask. So when you see things in this warrant that suggest the suspect may have recorded the murder, understand that there may not be any proof or evidence that suggests that. They're just trying to get the warrant, and they're listing possible things the person who did this to Missy would have used a phone for. It's not that they have evidence that this person used the phone for this. They're saying, we believe that the suspect would have used a phone for this. Therefore, we believe the suspect had a phone. Therefore, we want this warrant. But essentially, the police wanted to know who was in the area at the time of the murder, who was pinging off those nearby cell phone towers. On the same day, CBS in the Dallas-Fort Worth area published an article almost challenging the law enforcement stance that what happened to Missy did not necessarily mean she had been this suspect's targeted victim.
They say she may have interrupted a burglary, but call the timing odd. The video shows the intruder wandering the halls, but never actually taking anything.
This is not kind of your routine burglary. I don't ever want to say anything's routine, but if somebody's going to go in and try to burglarize a business, they're going to get in, head exactly where they're going to go, try to grab as much stuff as they can, and then leave.
Attorney and former police officer Pete Schulte says both the intruder's behavior and costume are unusual, leaving questions about the true motive.
It is going to raise the awareness to the police department that there may be something more here than just a burglary or even a murder. Something else was going on here, and they're going to try to uncover that.
Which was pretty much my conclusion that I'd mentioned to you earlier. And it's important to note, the surveillance video from inside the church allegedly never captures this suspect taking anything. And nothing was reported missing in the aftermath. And if it's true, what the the search warrant said that she died from several blows to the head and the chest. This is overkill for somebody who's just trying to get away with, a robbery, right? It seems personal. It seems like there might be some emotion behind this killer's motives and actions. The next day, on April 22nd, the Midlothian Police Department conducted their second press conference in the Missy Bevers case.
We really do believe that somebody still knows that this person is out there. Somebody knows who this person is, and they haven't yet come forward. We're convinced of that, and we ask the public to analyze the footage once again, watch the mannerisms, the walking style of the suspect. If they have any information, please contact us. Our investigation has included the execution of several search warrants over the past couple of days, and they form the basic building blocks of our investigation.
And then later that day, the same day as this press conference happened, something happened that threw the media and the public into an actual feeding frenzy like Shark Week. Brandon Bevers' father, Randy Bevers, visited a Midlothian dry cleaners and brought a few items of clothing to be cleaned, including a women's white long-sleeved shirt, size XXL, covered in blood. Now, this was a dry cleaners that Missy had been to before. They knew her and they were obviously aware of her death and the investigation surrounding it. So an employee at the dry cleaners called the police as soon as Randy Bevers left the store, and detectives promptly arrived to take the shirt as evidence and have it tested. Now, of course, as soon as this got out, everyone was ready to lock Randy in prison and throw away the key. So Brandon and Randy decided to give an impromptu press conference outside of the Midlothian police station to put a stop to the rumor mill before it spun out of control. And that is where we are going to end part 1 of the Missy Bevers case, because apparently, unbeknownst to me, because I'm always going in thinking I can fit everything in one video, but I always am wrong, this case demands more than one video. So I'm going to do it justice and give you 2. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in this Halloween season. This case is really, really spooky, and that's why we're covering it for Halloween, because this whole idea of somebody just wandering around in SWAT gear, you never see their face, just kind of sitting in a church waiting to kill someone. It's scary, it's creepy, it's eerie. It definitely makes me not want to leave the house before 5 a.m. I just don't like it. It gives me the weirdest, skeeviest feeling. I just don't like it. It's definitely scary. And I cannot believe that this case is unsolved, which makes me feel like something else is at foot. So we are going to finish this case in the next video. But until then, make sure you like this video if you liked it. Make sure you share it if you think it was worth sharing. Check out Tim Koval and his website. I will link it in the description box. And there's a lot of stuff about the case on there. He's awesome. He's such a fun guy to talk to, and we ended up having a lot in common, especially the kind of books we like to read, which was very interesting. I love talking about books. But anyways, check Tim out. Check out our Halloween merch. Link is in the description box. We have our old Halloween design, oldies but still goodies, and we have our new Halloween design, which was the Don't Hex Me design, which has become very popular and people love it, and I love it too. I can't wait to get mine. Also, make sure you let me know what you think about this case in the comment section. I know there's a lot of people that are obsessed with this case, and I know it's probably going to bring some controversy to my comment section, because so many people still think her husband was involved and I just don't. And that's why I wanted to get it out of the way early, so that you didn't think you were coming along on this witch hunt with me only to be disappointed. I like to set reasonable expectations, but let me know what you think in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't, and make sure if you were already subscribed, you're still subscribed, because YouTube loves to unsubscribe people from my channel. It's like April Fool's Day with YouTube every day of the year. It's such a fulfilling relationship. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Glasses USA for sponsoring this video, and I will see you very soon. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay spooky. Bye.